have been so instrumental in Eric and my journey in learning about magic with a K, not Penn and Teller, David Copperfield magic. I'm talking about,
and we are, and
John D.
We're beginners at this. So,
how did you get into this? You know, Eric and I went to Hebrew school, right? Our father, surprisingly, we found out was only half Jewish. But we went to Hebrew school. We were bar mitzvahed. The word Kabbalah was never mentioned to us before Madonna, before we found out Madonna was doing the Kabbalah. How did you get into this?
It's ironic, or coincidentally, that you held up the copy of the book by
John D. Man.
Yeah, by Dr. John D. I've written a bit on D. D, actually, curiously enough. Yeah, really? So again, coincidentally enough. In fact, I don't know if you can see it in the thing. There's actually a bust of D in the background here. I have a little bust of D I had commissioned and things like that. So I'm really interested in John D. So it's basically it was 2 tracks into sort of becoming interested in this material. The one was just growing up watching Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World and In Search Of, hosted by Leonard Nimoy. And it would just be these bizarre episodes before I went to school on Atlantis and Bigfoot and magic and all this stuff. And it just really filled me with a sense of awe. And of course, Aristotle famously said that all philosophy begins in awe. And so the world just struck me as a weird place and worthy of investigating the things that don't typically get investigated. And so so that was a part of it. And then later in my life, I was learning Latin. And like everybody who struggles through Latin, you realize that part of what makes Latin interesting is that it's so complicated. And that I was studying Latin, and then I was looking at different languages online. And this is, I was a kid, this is way back in BBS days, really early internet. And I learned about Dr. John D. And allegedly he'd had these conversations with these angels, him and Edward Kelly. And I started looking at the Enochian language, and the fact that I realized quickly that it was a language. It had grammar, it had syntax. The words mutate in a grammatical way, right? So you have words like kaoskag, which we don't know how to pronounce these words, but it means something like earth. And you see this word being declined, right, in the Enochian sessions and these Enochian calls. And to me, that struck me as profoundly weird, because it's one thing to go to a Pentecostal church and simply enunce random sounds, right? It's another thing for a language to have a structure. And that's hard to fake. It's hard to fake a linguistic structure. You can't make up Latin or Russian on the fly. It's not going to happen. And so the D. Kelly stuff really intrigued me. Even as a youngster, I probably was 12 or something at the time. 13. And this just really stuck with me. And stuck with me so much that when I went eventually to Amsterdam to study esotericism at the academic level, at the professional level, which is one of the few places in the world where you can do that, I wrote on D. I tried to solve that question. And that article got published in a really prestigious journal in the study of Western esotericism called Aries, and has been quoted extensively. People seem to agree with me to some degree, which is nice, I guess. And so that was my inroad. And so I come at Western esotericism from 2 points of view, one of which is from the academic side in terms of philosophy. I'm trained as a philosopher. So it gives me a critical thinking mind. So I'm critical of stuff, I hope. And the other side of it is just a genuine sense of curiosity. Why don't these things get studied?
Yeah.
Right.
Why is it that you could tell your whole life and never hear about Paracelsus or D or whatever, even if you don't agree with the fact that maybe that what they encountered was supernatural or whatever.
That was my next book. That was my next book.
Yeah, Paracelsus. That's a quite old copy of that edition. And there was this world, this underground world of things that I found to be fascinating, that now populate my shelf and populate my mind and now populate my YouTube channel. And I became just fascinated by these things. And part of the YouTube channel, part of the program of that channel, is to put out this information in a rigorous, scholarly way, without woo or without my own personal opinion even often, and put it out there in a way that's accessible, comprehensible, and free, basically to anyone who wants to take up this. And of course, every episode I have has a reading list where I point folks in the direction of further stuff they can read. Sometimes I had someone comment that says it was a bit like occult reading Rainbow, which I took as about the best compliment I could get.
That's great.
So at some level, yeah, that's the basic sort of inroad, and that's at some level also what I'm up to these days in terms of trying to fix that problem, right? It's one thing to ask the question, why isn't this stuff better known? The other side of that is to say, well, it's not going to make itself known.